Right, I'm the state senator from Lynn and the Senate co-chair of the Transportation Committee. I'd like to call this hearing to order. Thank you everyone who joined us on such a short week, both here in person, also joining us remotely online. I am joined here by my co-chair, Representative Strauss, who I will turn it over to momentarily, but first wanted to recognize some of the Senate committee members that are here. We have Vice Chair Paul Mark joining us remotely, and we will keep an eye out for others as they arrive. Today we have a short agenda, hearing just two bills, both pertaining to commercial driver's licenses. We have a bill, House Bill 5117 from our Vice Chair Murray, also a bill from Governor Healy, Senate Bill 510, House Bill 5109. That will clarify the existing statute so that CDL license holders will not be disqualified for life from operating a commercial vehicle based on convictions in a passenger vehicle occurring on or before September 30th, 2005. We thank the governor for the letter she submitted along with the filing of this bill that we are considering today. We only have a few people that are signed up to testify. We will keep an eye out for anyone joining remotely that would like to testify, and we also will keep an open record for written testimony for 10 days following today's hearing. Thank you again for everyone here in attendance, and with that, I'll turn it over to my co-chair, Representative Strauss.
Thank you, Senator. As indicated, and I apologize for arriving 4 minutes late, not so bad, but late nevertheless. I am the House co-chair of the committee, and the Senator has identified the matters on which we're scheduled for this public and hybrid hearing. I'd like to identify or introduce some of the House members that are here. In attendance to my left is Vice Chairman, Representative Murray. To my right is Representative Norman Orr from the town of Lakeville. And participating remotely at the moment, we have committee members, Representatives Blais, Howitt, Cairns, Sabadosa. I did get a text a moment ago from Representative Fluker Oakley. She's coming from a meeting at City Hall and probably should be joining us shortly. As indicated, it's my understanding with regard to the governor's bill, House 5109, the governor's message itself and the language of the bill, I think pretty clearly indicate the governor's and the MassDOT's position and the registry's position on this as well. So at this point, I know I'm not anticipating any administration witnesses should anybody inquire. And I'll turn it back over at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up to testify, we have Sean Bishop from Ground Effects Landscaping. I don't know if there's Leanne Bishop also from Ground Effects. If you want to join together, you're welcome to approach. Thank you. If you don't mind just stating your hometown as well as the bills you have to support.
Yes, sir. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Sean Bishop. I'm from Plymouth, Massachusetts. My business is Ground Effects Landscaping. We're located in Carver, Massachusetts. I'm here today to speak in support of this change to the law due to the direct fact that it has impacted one of my best employees, has been caught up in this mess since the registry sent these letters to these drivers notifying them that their licenses would be completely suspended within 5 days with no warning, no due process, no way to look into the issue. This has caused me to lay off one of my best employees and put him on state assistance because he can no longer drive a vehicle in Massachusetts. They didn't just take his CDL away, they revoked his Class D license as well. This is a gentleman who made some mistakes when he was 19 years old, over 30 years ago, dealt with them through the court system, had them resolved legally. He got his CDL license in 2017. He had his record reviewed at that point, and the registry cleared him to get his CDL license. He doesn't even have a parking ticket as a professional driver. He's got nothing but compliments from my customers. So I wanted to share the committee how this impacts more than just these drivers. I've talked to several drivers that have been impacted by this. I know several of them are owner-operators, so you basically put them out of business overnight. I know one gentleman, he's the main breadwinner for his family. He owns a boat moving company, and he can't move boats because of this action by the state and the registry. I think as a taxpayer and a business owner in the state, it's completely unconscionable what you guys are doing or what the registry has done to these drivers. You know, not you guys, I know there's been a lot of support at the State House for this to be changed. I just want, as a business owner, I have no problem that a CDL, commercial driver licensed person, should be held to a higher standard as a professional and operate as such. But let's have one standard. The federal mandate for CDL drivers is a 10-year look back at your driving record for any reasons for disqualification. I think a lifetime look back in Massachusetts' case is excessive. It's never been enforced before. All these licenses went into effect years and years ago, and Michael has had his license renewed over 7 times since the 80s, and it's never come up. So I feel that the registrar of motor vehicles is completely inept in their management of how they administrate these rules, and that's the bigger issue here. Most of these drivers are in similar circumstances to Michael. They're not a danger to the public. They're not a danger to families driving their cars. And, you know, we need to give them a way to renew their careers and their livelihoods, because this is just, it just can't stand. It has to be changed. Michael, you know, he was gonna be here today. The stress of this has caused, he was hospitalized from the stress of this. He just went home on Monday. You know, this is literally a life and death situation for some of these families that don't have a way to make their living because of this rule. I also want to mention, as a business owner, you know, the registry sent these letters to these men and women with 5 days notice of suspension. No real way to do recourse. You call a phone number that's unlisted, or there's no number listed, it comes up, no number on your phone. You can't call them back because there's no number. They like, don't miss your phone call for your appointment. You can't call them back because the numbers on the cell phones are unlisted. It just, the bureaucracy and the ineptitude of the registry and how they've handled this is just, it's just wrong. I mean, you know, we've had to hire an attorney to represent Michael. You know, it's cost my company a lot of money. We have one of our trucks is not working because Michael's not working. So the effects of what the registry have done is way bigger than just those 500 drivers. And, you know, I implore the senators of the state and the governor to please change this rule so these drivers can get reinstated, because they're not bad people. They're not doing harm to the public. You know, these are people that made mistakes in most cases 20, 30 years ago that were dealt with then, and now the state is double jeopardy, you know, imposing penalties on them that are taking their jobs away for just out of the blue. And you know, that's what I wanted to say today. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm not as good as Senator Rita. I work with people and committee members. My name is Leanne Bishop. And with my husband, I'm an owner of Ground Effects Landscaping and Ground Effects Transportation Services in Carver, Mass. My employee, Michael McDonald, is one of 500 drivers whose lives have been upended since these draconian CDL regulations were instituted in the Commonwealth. To quote Aristotle, the law is reason free from passion. Massachusetts regulations to the CDL look back are a true case of a law written as passion free from reason. Our elected legislature, you, are essentially are elected by the people of the Commonwealth and tasked with creating laws that represent the citizens of the Commonwealth for their benefit. The current law does neither. It is a knee-jerk piece of legislation designed, if we are being frank, to cover the negligence of registered motor vehicles. Passion free from reason. I do not want to waste the committee's time reviewing the law as it is currently written. Instead, I would like to focus on why the current regulations fail the citizens of the Commonwealth. Driver's licenses, as you are all aware, are issued in the state of residence. They have no impact on state of employment. So for a citizen of Rhode Island or New Hampshire, the issuance of a driver's license is dependent upon that citizen meeting the criteria set forth by the regulations of the state in which the citizen lives, not works. So, for example, a citizen who lives in New Hampshire is employed in Massachusetts. Every day, that citizen crosses state lines to drive an 18-wheeler for a company whose physical address is in Massachusetts. This citizen drives on our roads and among our citizens. Let's say, for example, that citizen had 2 DUIs in the 1980s and refused a breathalyzer in 1991. This citizen of New Hampshire can legally drive for, be insured by, and be paid by a Massachusetts company because he lays his head and pays taxes to the state of New Hampshire, because the state of New Hampshire follows the federal mandate for a 10-year look back for CDLs. If that same citizen laid his head at night and paid taxes in the Commonwealth, he would not have a CDL or a job. He would also have his passenger driver's license stripped from him by the Registry of Motor Vehicles without due process or timely hearing for infractions which this citizen had paid the price for, based on legal statutes at the time of the infraction. The registry is now committing double jeopardy by repunishing that citizen. States are not countries. We do not have checkpoints at our state borders. We do not control who drives in and out of our state to make sure they are following the regulations set forth by the Commonwealth prior to their arrival. The current law does not keep the citizens of the Commonwealth safer. It just punishes them and favors those who work in but do not live in or pay taxes to the Commonwealth. It is punishment for citizenship here. The law is currently The legislation put forth by the governor makes these critical changes to provide equity to our citizens. Aligning a 10-year look back for CDLs with federal guidelines is vital to both citizens and businesses. To be less eloquent, some things are just wrong. The governor's proposal rights this wrong and aligns the Commonwealth with its neighbors. We want people to live, work, and contribute in the Commonwealth. I am proud to live here, and I am proud to raise my children here. I am also proud to fight for what is right. What has happened to my employee is awful. He is actually the example citizen I spoke of. He just lives in the Commonwealth. He is a proud truck driver who made mistakes in 1984 when he was 19 years old. He admitted to and paid the Commonwealth price imposed at the time of his offense. He refused a breathalyzer when it was not punishable to do so, and when legal advice was to refuse breathalyzers because they were inaccurate and they had just come out. So when Michael got his CDL in 2017, he went in front of the Board of Appeals to get his license. They read his record and rightfully felt that 40-year-old infractions were irrelevant. Let me repeat, my driver has already had a Board of Appeals hearing regarding his driving history. Yet the registry in one fell swoop took both his passenger and CDL licenses away, and at the same time his livelihood. The Commonwealth is now paying for him via unemployment and mass health. It's not enough for him to live on. He's choosing between food and rent. He can't get to the doctor. There's no accessible public transportation where he lives. He spent last week in BI, hospitalized from stress, and in the intensive care unit. That is real. He wanted to speak today, but it was too much for him. The Board of Appeals has to date not issued a hearing date for his passenger driver's license, which they say in the computer is currently expired, but per the paperwork they sent my employee was reinstated on March 5th, 1985. They say they can't give him a hearing date because his suspension date is not coming up because it's already passed. There's no one to call. There's no one to talk to. Please support the governor's legislation. The registry and attorneys want you to. It would expose the abject disarray and incompetence of the entire division. It's bad, guys. It's bad. Citizens pay for this. They pay for every employee and division of the government. Please do right by them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean and Leanne. We appreciate you sharing the thoughts and story of your employee. I would just quickly, if not correct for the record, just clarify that this is not from new legislation. This isn't anything that the legislature has passed recently, nor is it a new rule. This is rather the result of, an audit and DRB diving into their previous records. Again, not right or wrong, just wanted to clarify.
Correct,
No.
yes.
This isn't a recent change.
Okay.
I turn it over to Chair Strauss.
And I also want to thank you for taking time out today to be here and put a human face, even if indirectly, on what is involved in this situation. Obviously, I don't know the individual circumstances, but I just want to add in terms of a context so that we I apologize if I get too much into the weeds. We've got two issues, so I'm really speaking more broadly than your circumstance. But we have two issues, broadly speaking, that are going on here, purely with regard to CDL licenses. And that's why I say I don't know his circumstances with regard to his, I'll call it regular operator's permit. But with regard to CDL permits or licenses, because of the action of so many members of the public, and as a result, colleagues in the legislature, no, to my knowledge, no CDL suspensions actually occurred. Not that the registry wasn't intending that, but none occurred, and there was an appeal process set up. So those 480 or so, I'll give you a chance, don't worry. Those individuals who could exercise a right to appeal for a later Board of Appeals hearing, no loss of license occurred. And upon the filing by the governor's bill, they even extended the hold on this. That was not a permanent solution, but it did stop the immediate loss of those who were purely affected by virtue of their CDL. So two things are going on here. One, the law, Chapter 90, I'm going to say 9F, but it's in Chapter 90, has authorized for many years the Registry of Motor Vehicles to issue regulations that would have, and many states do this, it goes back to the 1990s. So for 30 years, there's been a statute on the books that has authorized the registry to provide that 10-year period. Had the registry somewhere over the course of 30 years, so it's kind of been a bipartisan failure, if you will, adopted that kind of regulation, your employee wouldn't have faced this situation. So the statute's been fine. The registry never issued regulations. I will say that at the same time the governor filed this bill, they did announce a schedule, I think that by February, they intend to adopt that kind of regulation. So forward-looking, that 10-year date for those who've been suspended to be able to apply to regain their license will be in effect. Separately, however, the governor's legislation, as I read it and understand it, would put us as a state in line with federal law, so that anything even before, I think it's 2005, will not count or will not affect a CDL license. So that, just so everyone gets a sense of the numbers, if something like 480 CDL license holders had received these notices, the change proposed by Governor Healy would resolve the situation affecting about 450 of these people. So it's a significant correction, if you will. So both have to, I hope, take place. A statutory change to bring us in line with federal law and this regulation. I should indicate, and I think as a policy matter, I happen to agree with the governor's decision in proposing this. Nevertheless, if someone has, at some point in their history, 3 or more OUIs, operating under the influence of substances, in their record, this is not the field of work for them. So
I think the governor-
youthful mistake, something like that. I happen to agree with the governor that, not everyone, and you would know this best, not everyone is cut out for doing commercial driving with the size of the vehicles and everything that's at stake and being on the road. And so the governor has set up a standard, proposed in the bill that we're having the hearing on, 3 or more OUIs, and maybe that's too much to be considered as a candidate to have a
I think
CDL.
if you read the governor's
Yeah.
thing a little more clearly, it says 3 or more convictions. So it's very distinct. For my employee, this would not fall, that would not disqualify.
And I,
It's very important wording.
and I would say this candidly, even if your employee had 3 or more convictions, and they don't, I would say, we can't help in all situations. There has to be some base qualification for, I would say, entrusting an individual with the responsibility of driving the kinds of vehicles that require CDLs. So I know I was long-winded, and I didn't mean to cut you off,
I
so,
would like to respond.
Yeah, sure.
Chairman. 2 things. One, in Michael's situation, and that's all I can speak of with direct knowledge, is the problem we're having here with his situation is the registry itself. I mean, it started out with a notification of suspension. Then we got a phone call in the middle of the night, about 8:30 at night, saying that decision had been delayed because the registry had decided to postpone it because they were gonna have hearings. Well, then we went, as a company, we went and checked his record through the insurance company, and they said Michael's now suspended, including his Class D. He should have been remanded to a Class D while this all got sorted out, but the registry suspended it. We've gotten at least, and I'd be happy to forward them to your committee, all these letters from the registry. One hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing. And it's
something, experience tells me that your descriptions may have an impact, may not. We are not set up for the individual case
No,
appeal.
I understand,
Okay.
but my thing is I want to make you aware of what's going on with your registry of motor vehicles,
Sure.
because they're representing the state in enforcing these rules that the senators and, you guys vote on. And it's completely, the word, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but I would say dysfunctional would be the best wording here. I mean, the letters don't even make sense that they're sending out to drivers. One day they said you're suspended, and the next day they call you and say, oh, we're gonna delay that. Now they're saying the hearings are suspended, but our attorney, who we've hired to represent Michael, asked us not to file for the first round of hearings for his case, because what he has heard, because he's representing, I think he's representing 200 of these drivers directly. The first round of hearings were automatic forfeitures of license. They're just denying people.
And again, it's not our role to second guess or even comment on advice of counsel. But I think what the governor has done is positive, forward-thinking.
What the governor has done is very, is the right course of action.
Great.
Because I think then it'll make it clear to the registry the rules that they have to enforce, how they have to enforce them, and there won't be so much ambiguity. And all I'm asking for as a business owner is the CDL commercial driver's license it's a federal license. So let's have one standard that every state has to meet, instead of all these states making up their own rules. Let's just have one standard, because drivers right now in the industry's shorthanded on qualified CDL people. And in Michael's case, and I know you're looking at the bigger picture, but in Michael's case, since he got his professional driver's license in 2017, he doesn't even have a parking ticket on his record, okay? Yes, did he make a couple mistakes when he was an 18-year-old kid back in the 80s? He did, but he takes his job extremely seriously. He takes a lot of pride in the work that he does. So do several of these other drivers that I've talked to. And they're just asking for the laws to be applied fairly and clearly so that everybody's following the same rules. And that's where I think Governor Healy's, actions here are the right way to go, and it will help put good people back to work, and it'll also clarify the standards so that myself as a business owner, other organizations, that hire CDL drivers, we're all playing with the same set of rules. That's all we're asking for. I think this is an easily corrected situation, but we need, our legal counsel and everybody in the industry we've talked to, we need you guys to help. We need you guys to clarify this so that everybody understands it and that everybody has one standard to meet. And it'll help me run my business. It'll help people like Michael go back to work. And you know what? If there are people that shouldn't have their license and they get caught in this, and like you said, 3 strikes, you're out, I have no problem with that. Because I agree with you. A commercial driver driving a 100,000-pound vehicle down the road, if they're a chronic alcohol abuser, they should not be on the roads in a commercial vehicle. 100% agree, and would support that. But I just want one standard to make it, equitable. Yeah, that would be what I would say.
Thank you, and
Thank you guys for that.
he's lucky he has a loyal boss, so.
Thank you.
We're lucky to
Thank
have
you.
a great employee and who's worth fighting for. And we do support the governor's bill. We do support it. We don't want, as business owners, the liability of employing someone who is a danger on the road. It's our liability. We own this. This is our family's livelihood too. It's very important safety standards, but fair and equitable safety standards for the citizens of the Commonwealth are extremely important.
Thank you again.
Thank you for your time.
We may have some other questions from members of the committee, if you don't mind, just sticking around. And first, just want to thank you again for your testimony and recognize that we share the sense of urgency around this issue. These are our constituents, our the people we represent as well. So these bills were just referred to our committee less than a week ago, and through the co-chair and I wanted to have this hearing. Even though it is Thanksgiving week, we thought that the situation warranted that. So we appreciate
Well, I really
the
think it,
situation.
because it is very important. This is a critical, to these drivers that are affected by this is critical.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Mr. Vice Chairman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No real questions, but I'd like to echo what Chair Strauss had indicated, that you really helped put a human face on this, very abstract paper problem. And it's very similar to a number of emails that I received from folks similarly affected as your employee in my district and beyond, really throughout the Commonwealth. And I was quite surprised when I looked into the statute, and again, as Chair Strauss had indicated, the statute, which has been in place for years, does provide the RMV discretion to issue guidelines for a 10-year disqualification. And the RMV at some point issued regulations directly in contravention of that, where they refused to exercise that discretion, which to me made no sense and frankly I found unconscionable. So I'm very pleased of the action that the governor took to bring this issue. I'm very pleased with the chairs of this committee realizing how important this is to bring these bills forward and hopefully get this resolved before the end of the year. But thank you for coming and really, again, shedding a human face on this predicament.
I truly appreciate all your help and the governor's help with this. And, I just hope, this can get passed as soon as possible for these families that are affected by this.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge, as I indicated, committee member Fluker Oakley has joined us. Welcome. And also remotely, Representative Whips has been here since the beginning. I overlooked her at that point. Sorry.
Thank you. So, any other questions from members of the committee here? We have a few questions, I believe, online. Rep. Howard, do you have a question for the witnesses?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not so much as a question, but just a little background. Full disclosure, I'm probably one of the few representatives that has a CDL license. I've had it for many years, and the requirements of a CDL license, especially now, are quite extensive, aside from the health checkup. They require schools as part of the CDL requirement, which when I got my CDL years ago, the school wasn't necessary. You could study on your own. But it just seems that there are a number of issues that the registry has put forth recently. And my first question would be directed at the registry, although no one apparently is here from the registry, is whether they have hired outside businesses to go through their records to try and recoup some of this money. The reason I ask that, I had a constituent who was back in the 80s, a student at BC Law School, and he had gotten a notice just about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, that his license to drive in Massachusetts, although he no longer lives in Massachusetts, I say a constituent, someone who contacted me, they're all constituents when they have a problem. He had to either pay the fine, which he felt was the easiest way to do it. It was a ticket when he was in law school at BC, or appeal it. He figured it was just easy to take care of it, so he paid the ticket. He then received a notice that he had to go to a school for, I think, 4 hours each night for 2 nights up in Boston. And presently he lives in Rhode Island, and it was a subcontracted school. It wasn't even part of the registry. So that brings me to the question, did the registry hire someone to go through their records to try and recoup money, just as this situation has unfolded as well? We had a situation most recently with the registry with K-cars, which are small Japanese cars, which met federal regulations, which were 25 years old. And people brought them in. They paid good money for them. They were registered. And then all of a sudden, the registry one day decided, well, you can't register a K car, and, you know, tough luck if you bought one. And fortunately, they rescinded their directive. So there seems to be no issue as to how it affects people's lives, their income, their families, just as this gentleman has stated. So I question what's going on within the registry, what has caused this all of a sudden look back. And I guess my final question is, as much as I'm in favor of this, I don't know how long it will take for it to go through the legislative process, whether the governor could put an executive order to take care of this very quickly, and that way we don't lose any time and these people are able to get back driving their vehicles for the benefit of the Commonwealth and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I believe we also have a question online from Representative Whips.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. and Mrs. Bishop, I thank you very much for coming in and testifying. Your story about your employee, Mike, was very similar to many of the men and women in my district who this also affects. I'm also a business owner. I don't have a CDL, but I've noticed in the last 5 years, whether it's an LTL or dedicated truck, we have a severe lack of truck drivers nationwide, whether it's bringing raw material to our place or shipping finished goods. And certainly the same is the trucks that bring food to our grocery stores and pharmacies. And our truck drivers do more, I think, for us as a citizenry than we even realize. And we've passed big bills this year regarding housing and infrastructure. All of those projects rely on people with CDLs. So I'm grateful the governor has brought this bill forward. I am begging the chairs to move this as quickly as humanly possible, because we know if this doesn't pass by December 31st at midnight, by the time new committees are created and chairs in the legislative process, we won't be hearing this again until maybe March. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us legislators to get this through as quickly as possible. And Mr. Chairman, we appreciate you very much, and we know this is probably your last committee hearing, so I thank you, Chairman Strauss, and I really hope that this can be the final thing we push through as a committee, because everybody in the Commonwealth relies on these men and women who transport our goods to and from market. So thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Bishop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just add thank you to my colleague. You pressed all the right buttons, so. But in all seriousness, as my co-chair indicated, this bill only was referred to the committee last Thursday, and even despite a week that people are inclined to think people are a little more relaxed, we wanted to get this up and before the committee as soon as we could. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see any more questions here in person nor online, so we thank the witnesses for your
Thank you
testimony.
for your time.
Next, I'd like to welcome the President of Teamsters Local 25, Thomas Mari.
Good afternoon. Dear Chairs Strauss and Crichton, on behalf of our nearly 13,000 members of Teamsters Local 25, working both in public and private sector occupations throughout Massachusetts, I urge you to pass H 5109, an act related to commercial driver's license sponsored by Governor Maura T. Healey. I cannot stress how important this legislation is for my members as well as every other person whose livelihood is in jeopardy without these changes. Nationally, there's an estimated shortage of 80,000 commercial truck drivers, which explains delivery delays, inventory shortages, and high prices. We are working every day to train more drivers and appreciate the governor's and your willingness to work with us to urgently address this issue. There is no good time to lose your job, but less than a month before the holidays is especially difficult. And while members of Teamsters Local 25 who work in the freight and package delivery occupations are on the front line, it is important to consider that virtually every sector of our economy is impacted. And so Teamsters and others who drive commercial vehicles in the construction industry, fuel delivery, food supply, and every other aspect out there that we get deliveries in are about to lose their livelihood. House 5109 strikes an important balance. It protects jobs without compromising the safety of the public. It ensures that provisions of the Federal Safety Road Act of 2012, Commercial Motor Vehicle Safety Act of 1986, and the Motor Carrier Safety Improvement Act of 1999 are the safety standards for commercial drivers, and also rightfully align the Commonwealth's emphasis on holding accountable drivers who have committed certain offenses. This is sound public policy. The message this legislation sends to every person who possesses a CDL or aspires to have a CDL is simple. If you make a mistake, accept the punishment, and never make the same mistake again. Your career will not be abruptly terminated. It affirms the power of recovery and rewards those who have decades of sobriety and spotless professional driving records and are productive members of our community. Thank you very much for your time today, the opportunity to offer testimony, and I cannot stress to you how important it is to urgently move this bill through the legislative process. In the meantime, I wish you all and your families a happy Thanksgiving and a happy holiday season. Thank you. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. President. We extend our happy Thanksgiving to you as well, and thank you for speaking here today on behalf of your members of Local 25. Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing you here, not online, you pass the test, no questions.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your support in this. And
Absolutely, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
sorry.
Can I make a comment? Sorry.
Please.
I was sitting here reflecting. First off, thank you so much for your testimony. And as an only child who was very spoiled around this time of year, I'm so grateful for you and your crew for all they do to make this holiday season a blessed occasion for many, many families across the Commonwealth. And so I just want to thank you for your testimony and say I appreciate the urgency and the speed with which this committee moved upon receiving the filing of this bill. And I'm no Rep. Whips, but you will be missed, Mr. Chair Strauss. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you so much. We have one final witness that is signed up today from online, Rhonda Zero. Rhonda, are you available online to testify?
I am available, thank you.
The floor is yours.
My
Thank you.
name is Rhonda Zero. First off, I would like to thank Representative Cairns and Senator Lovely for their response to me when I reached out to them. They were very genuine, they took ownership of this, and that's why I'm here today. I'm a small business owner in Massachusetts, and I'd like to speak to you briefly on two ends. The end is a small business owner, and also as someone who has an employee who has been impacted by this. To your point, my employee has not lost his license at this point. He did receive the letter. He received the letter rescinding the letter, et cetera, et cetera. My driver is in his mid-40s. He is a single father of 2 teenage girls. He works 40 to 60 hours a week, accepts all work that is available to him. He could slack off and collect public funds for his children whose mother passed away, but he isn't. He's out there and he's working. This was devastating to him. This is what he does. This is all he's done. This is what he likes to do. Now, can he get another job? Yes. And he delivers to a lot of construction sites. He's a hard worker. And many of those companies have already have tried to poach him and said, you know, if you'd like to come to work here. He wouldn't like to, but if his license is taken away, that might be what he has to do. And it would definitely disrupt his family and schedules and so forth. As I say, he's a single father. We have to accommodate him being home to get his kids from school, which we're happy to do. Not all jobs can do that. So I am speaking on behalf of Brendan. Now, Brendan's transgressions occurred, one in 1999 and one in 2006, which was a refusal to take a breathalyzer. That one is of concern to me because while I'm not terribly proficient in reading all the legalese that was in the bills, there is something in the federal bill that was of concern to me because it's anything before 2005. So that begs the question, is Brendan going to lose his job? Because in 2006, he refused a breathalyzer test. Like those who spoke before me, I think what's more important here is how long has Brendan been driving with a clean record? And that has been, you know, just shy of over 20 years. My other concerns with not addressing this, as we all know and has been testified to, we have a shortage of CDL drivers. Massachusetts went so far as to step out of the federal guideline, which is 21 for CDL drivers, and Massachusetts now allows CDL drivers at 18. Now, all joking aside, we have all heard that the Supreme Court has determined that 18-year-olds' brains aren't developed, that their decision-making processes aren't always there. And if this doesn't get fixed, we're going to take someone like Brendan, who is experienced with a developed brain, off the road, and we're going to put an 18-year-old with no experience on the road. It defies logic. It defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do here. So I do have a concern about that. As a small business owner, this is egregiously impactful. I'm a little bit more challenged than those that spoke before me in that I'm in a hazardous materials industry. I'm the one that's delivering people's fuel oil today to heat their homes before the holiday. I'm filling up generators at nursing homes. I fill up generators at Logan Airport to make sure that that runs. And hazmat drivers are very difficult to come by. Not only do they have to have a CDL, they have to undergo all other kinds of testing. And to take these hazmat drivers and just kick them to the side, replacing these guys is, I don't want to say next to impossible, it is a challenge. And then there's the training and the learning curve and the safety tests. When I bring a new driver on, even if he has delivered fuel for another company and has loaded his truck at the same terminal my people are going to, they have to go through with one of my employees 5 times. They have to load the truck 5 times with one of my employees, even if they've been loading at that same terminal for the last 7 years. Replacing these people is very difficult. Hazmat drivers are enrolled in drug and alcohol programs. All of my drivers are randomly screened. I just get an email that says, you got to send John for a drug test. You got to send Brendan for a drug and an alcohol test. No rhyme or reason, and they are required to go. These are some of the safest drivers on the road. And because Brendan refused a breathalyzer in 1999 to take him off the road and put a less experienced person, particularly someone, maybe the person's been driving 10 years and never drove hazmat. It just defies logic. And I would ask that this bill be put through and that perhaps it be tweaked to make sure that people with offenses in 06 aren't also kicked to the curb. I think the issue is how long has it been since their prior offense, and what was that offense? I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. I genuinely and truly apologize for not coming in person. I normally would. I think it's important. But again, I am in the heating business. There's a holiday coming up, the coldest weather we've had so far this year, and we just needed, all boots on the ground. But I did think it was important to take the time. So again, I thank you very much, and I hope that someone somewhere will come to some common sense and just get this taken care of for these people and these small businesses.
Thank you. Absolutely no need to apologize for participating remotely. That is why we do this. And I've seen myself in the few years since we've added these hybrid hearings, the increase in engagement by the public and the ability to see these hearings, see us at work, and also to participate themselves. As to your question, that is another reason why we do these hearings. We're not here to give legal advice in his circumstance. I do believe, but you do not take this to the bank, that under the language of the governor's bill, this individual has just one post-2005 offense,
Right.
so would be okay.
That's what I thought. I wasn't sure.
The purpose of the hearing is because other people are watching and taking notes. We'll get advised as the legislation hopefully moves along to completion, just to be able to resolve that. And so people understand that that's why we do these public hearings, because it helps shape the quality of the legislation. It's not just an empty gesture to allow people to speak. It has an impact on the way we conduct our business. I know that's not often in certain newspapers, but it is a fact. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe we have a question from Representative Cairns on joining us remotely.
Thank you. Thank you both, Chair Crichton, Chair Strauss. I want to thank Rhonda for joining today and for taking the time over the past couple of months to bring our attention to this. And kudos to you for sticking with it, standing by your employee. It's very nice to see. And I'm grateful that we have this legislation before us. And I do want to say, add to my colleague, Representative Whips, and Luker Oakley, just to say thank you to the House Chair of this committee. It's hard to contemplate hearings next session without the input of the House Chair, who's been here about 30 years. And so that look-back perspective is so valuable. So Chair Strauss, you're going to have an open invitation to join these hearings in your spare time and just kind of be on speed dial for us. I hope that that's okay.
Put that in the calendar now.
So thank you. I'm looking forward to a speedy resolution. And I have a feeling, Mr. Chairman, that you helped bring this about. So I want to thank you again. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I do want the record to show that at our last hearing, which I thought was your last, I gave a very heartfelt, warm speech. But I do thank you again. I don't want to come back here again, but yes. No, but thank you for your service. And with that, I don't see any more questions from members of the committee here or online. And there is no one else signed up to testify. If anyone in the room would like to raise their hand and come up and testify, you're welcome to, or online. Seeing none, welcome, motion to adjourn. Moved. Moved, second. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you very much.